Volume 17 once again. This is a Balls Deep of Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z, or Z, depending on how you say that. For anybody who doesn't know, Balls Deep is a series where I dive into games old and new, and I give them my impressions, my thoughts, and I share some content with you from them. This is a very, very interesting choice, so I'm going to pick the second level, because I think the second level is a really good example of what this game is. Right, Old Town. So I've only got up to Nightmare on the difficulty. I played it on hard. I'm going to put it on hard for the purpose of this run, just to show you an example of the base difficulty you can start on. This is an interesting game, and it loads all the time with incredibly long load screens. Biggest flag this game has: install it if you're going to pick it up. You need to install it. I haven't, and I hope it makes these more bearable, but they're absolutely disgusting considering this game doesn't look that visually stunning, and it's not long or that demanding on the hardware. So if you don't know what this is an interesting spin-off of the Ninja Gaiden series where I believe is it Keiji Inafune? So I'm just going to pause it for a second here, guys, just to give you a little backdrop. I believe is it Keiji Inafune, the guy who is known for Onimusha and those series as one of the top Capcom guys, teamed up with Team Ninja to make this game. It was going to be a cel-shaded zombie Ninja Gaiden game where the player hunted Hayabusa instead of playing as him. I have no idea what that guy does, or even if he has any credibility anymore, but what this game is, I do not see his influence at all. This is the guy who thought adding actors to be the face of the main characters in Onimusha games gave it a gravitas, when I don't think I could have cared of anything less, personally. So then we fast forward time to this. So at this point, Team Ninja are already down on their luck because Ninja Gaiden 3 was bad, really bad, and then we have this game which has the Ninja Gaiden name in it, and people are hoping it's going to bring back the old spark of life. And unfortunately, this is more of another nail in the coffin than it ever is the defibs to bring this series back. And I'm going to show you why in this little preview. So I'm going to do my favourite combo in the game, X, Y, Y, B. That then chains into executions, executions then chain into executions. And I just killed a lot of people, it was gory, it was interesting, whatever. Picked up some stuff, did some combos, got grabbed by a torso. Pretty fun stuff. So there you have it. That is our first encounter on this level. Couple of zombies, fought them off. Combos are simple. It's a combination of, you have your katana attacks, which is mapped to X. You have your Y attacks, which is your heavy attacks, that act as kind of like guard breakers. And then you have your B attacks, which are your range / crowd control moves. You can combine all of them, and then A dashes. It doesn't jump, it dashes. You can block with the right bumper, right trigger grabs, left bumper uses your Batman detective mode. Pretty simple stuff. You can do, as I've said, combinations of moves. However, they're not... You've got to put a little bit more emphasis on the input. It's not as precise as what Ninja Gaiden is. Nowhere near as precise at all. But here we're introduced to one of the more diverse enemies. This is a clown foe. It's kind of got the It vibe going for it. He's a machete-wielding clown. He's introduced in a kind of flashy cinematic. And then we have the fights. So, did you notice how he kind of glowed before he attacked me? See that? That means I can counter him on that. Ninja Gaidens have never really been games where the counter was massive in them. It wasn't a main focus of the game. It was a technique that higher level players could use to turn into really awesome and devastating attacks, but it was never really a big focus point. On this game, it seems to be. Watch this. And then from this, I get a slow motion, which is an ability that you get, and then you can combo him and beat him up. Ow. And he's got a couple of different moves that make him different. He's spamming this same one. I don't know why. He's just being kind of mad. But one of the things as well, on Ninja Gaiden 2, a lot of the enemies took a few hits and guarded like he's doing, and then you could counter them and what have you. They didn't seem to have too much armour. Van Gelf's did, a few other ones did, the bosses did, of course, a few things along those lines. The enemies in this game, every so often, just suddenly go into an attack that you can't interrupt, like that. Completely uninterruptible, nothing you can do. If you continue to attack, then you will die. every single time. That is a range attack where he's going to lunge at me. It's an interesting way to deal with the enemies. Look, he's doing it there. Also, whenever I'm in a B attack, I can't cancel out of it because the B has the most recovery and the least amount of interruptible frames. X's, I can cancel really well. Quite responsive. Y's, kind of responsive too. B's just doesn't happen. Takes forever to come out of those moves. And then he dies. Then it spawns in a couple more of these enemies, and when you kill an enemy with an execution, you normally get their weapon, but I messed up just then. So this is your first encounter. A lot of zombies. We've just been introduced with a more interesting zombies. This is your cannon fodder enemy. This is the dudes that they throw at you when they're not really better to do. So this is my favourite move, because it does this. And then I chain it. Every time it slows down, I press left trigger. Every time it slows down, left trigger. Left trigger. Stop. Left trigger. Left trigger. And that's it. And that is how you fight these enemies. One of the most effective ways of doing it. It's like the Zandatsu from Metal Gear Rising if it took 0 skill. So it is a very... Look, you can drop it like that if you wait too long, but it trivializes every single one of these zombie fights, and when you execute people, they drop life. So it's a guaranteed way of healing, which I think is an interesting mechanic. However, the guy who we just fought, the clown guy, this guy, is completely immune to that technique I just did. He cannot be stunned into execution like every single other enemy we fought can do. And you might be thinking, well, you only fight a few of these enemies and they just complement the mix of enemies to give the game some diversity. And at this moment in time, you would think that, wouldn't you? And that's the biggest lie that this game does. Because come Mission 6 and 7, I will be fighting as many clowns as there were zombies in that previous wave. I shit you not. He's a special enemy type, and they throw him at you as if he's like a fodder enemy. And there's more than one of them. There are a handful of different ones that are all classed as these kind of special zombies, and each one of them is interesting, and when you fight them in this level, it gives you an example of what they can do, what they're capable of, and how you have to fight them. And it's a kind of cool, interesting, introduction, a little bit like a Platinum game. The difference here is, though, in Platinum games, all the way through the game, they continue to introduce new enemies. They never keep bringing back all the old ones just for the sake of bringing them back. They always intersperse them with palette-swapped stronger versions, redesigned versions, and this game doesn't. It just keeps throwing more, that's an attack by the way, more and more at you all the time. And they take forever to die. Everything takes forever to die, unless you do that move that you saw me do earlier on, that incredibly powerful flail into execution move, which is one of my favourite moves in the game. There are no UTs in this. You might be wondering, well, that's not a Ninja Gaiden, and I would agree with you. Instead, there's this. When you do an execution, you get the prompt to kill them, and then you steal their weapon. When you steal their weapon, you have a unique weapon that has certain traits that help you fight other fights. And there's a really interesting mechanic here, because there are fire weapons, there are electric weapons, and there are bile weapons. And there's kind of like a triumvirate of balance between it, where the electricity damages the bile damages the fire, something along those lines. That might be completely wrong, but there's a triangle of, a rotating triangle of weakness where each is its own weakness, kind of like rock, scissors, paper. And it's super interesting, because it makes these incredibly tough fights really simple if you come prepared and you use the right stuff. Which leads to you executing certain foes to get certain weapons to then use that weapon against the foes to trivialise the fight. And there's this really interesting, almost meta game that's happening. But it's completely underutilised, and for the most, it isn't explained enough for it to be a massive thing for a lot of players, so people are not even going to discover this, and they're just going to play through this game mashing the buttons. And when you're playing on normal, that isn't a problem. But when you bump it up to the hard difficulties, it becomes a problem. So imagine these zombies now, if all the zombies were special zombies, and they all had armour, could not be executed unless weakened, and I just had the exact same moves I have, because this game also pulls a really strange thing on the player. Watch this menu here. Look at that menu for a second, just have a good read. I'm going to take a sip. It has life, it has resists, and it has my weapons. And it's pretty interesting, like, oh, That life looks like I could do something with it. Can't do anything with it. That is literally a display telling me of the collectibles I have found. Same with that one. Don't do anything to it, can't change it, can't adapt it, can't mutate it, can't amend it, can't anything. And over here is the biggest kicker. We see the Heartless Blade, that's the sword we're using. Cool name. What other cool swords could be in the game? There could be a really long one, really short one, dual knives, all kinds of crazy stuff. Ninja Gaidens are known for weapons. Cyber arm, that's the base arm. Maybe I'll get one with like a brass knuckle or a spike or a hook or anything. Flail, pretty simple looking flail. Maybe I'll get a super cool new one. In this entire game, and this game is literally about 4 hours long because there's 7 levels, they're all pretty much identical, they're very short. The only thing that makes them even remotely long is the fact that they are filled with gauntlet fights with no checkpoints, which is incredibly frustrating on harder difficulties. And through this entire game, folks, you start with the exact same equipment that you will end the game with. You never get a new sword, you never get a new arm, never a new flail, that's just a passive ability. So why the hell does this page exist? Why is there an equipment page when we don't equip anything? Never. Not even once. All this does is give us the false pretense that it matters and that there's diversity, and somewhere deep in this game there will be more content coming that never in fact comes. Doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it. The visual style I think is really nice. The game itself, if it wasn't a Ninja Gaiden game, would probably be pretty interesting if they rebalanced it and they added checkpoints where none exist. So this is an introduction to 2 clowns, so this is a little bit more of an interesting fight. You can't just mash your way through because it doesn't work. You have to use a little bit more strategy, which is what these games are known for. I like having to use strategy, it's the thing I play these games for. And it's a good fight. There's the hyper attack, get out of the way of it, use your own attack, get in, move, duck, weave. That's unblockable, by the way. I just wanted to show that off. But it's interesting. And it's interesting in the right way, because it's something you can control, it's something you can learn, and you can fight. He's going to kick me there. Couldn't get out of that one. But a great way of fighting this enemy is to counter them, but it can be quite difficult to see. But you'll notice they're quite aggressive. You know, they're mixing it up. When they hit me, they do pretty good damage. A really good move for these is this, because it puts them into a stun state, and that last hit is so high they can't counter you when you're in it. See if I can start it over here. There we go. See, it's a super safe move that I've been using on a lot of the group fights. That puts it into an execution. The execution allows me to steal his weapon, which I'll actually show you this time. And then I'll use this guy's weapon on the other clown. So get some life back from the execution. He's going to do something weird. Jump attack. Right, do your other move. Counter him. Then go and use his weapon and beat him up with it, kill him with his weapon. Pretty interesting. And at this moment in time, I was kind of stoked with this game. You'll notice on my Twitter feed, I posted saying, you know, it's not half bad. It's going to piss every Ninja Gaiden fan off, but it's not half bad. It's got an interesting sense of humour. It's got some jokes that miss the mark. It's got a sexy secretary that effectively rapes Yaiba later on, and it's brushed off like a joke, which I thought was hilarious. And then there's this mechanic, which is Bloodlust. This is essentially Rage of the Titans, you know, Devil Trigger, whatever you want to call it. It's going to crazy mode and kill everything, and in this game, it's utterly broken. It's far too powerful, but it needs to be because the game is insanely cheap. And the problem with it is, you can't turn it off. Oh, sorry, you can turn it off. Or was that just the end of the fight? No, I think that was just the end of the fight. So did you notice how much I had left then? I had half a bar left, but because I won the fight, it deactivates it and it removes everything in your bar. So if you use it in between, on the first wave of a 3-wave fight, in between the first and second wave, the cutscene will deactivate it. And then there's some mild traversal stuff. There's a lot of problems with this game, in so many ways, and it could have been so much better. There's all this environment, and you get nothing for breaking it. You collect almost nothing except for collectibles. There's no interesting thing to collect, there's no upgrade potential, there's nothing. It's stripped of all qualities. And right now it's introducing another unique zombie. So let's just get rid of these guys. You'll notice I've been chased by the people that I ran away from. All I need to do, I think, is kill the people outside and it triggers the door. Yeah, here we go. This is another unique zombie. He's a unique one later on, and that's a bride. So the bride is an electricity creature. So let's take her on here, if I can skip this. Here we go. So this is the bride. She puts up an electric shield. You can only break electric shields, with the flail. Once she's hit by the flail, you can then proceed to combo her. That is a projectile that's very fast and very cheap. That's a combo. And then now I can beat her up. But if she gets the thing back, I have to break it before I can do anything. And she teleports all over the place. She's got some nasty projectiles. You want to watch her. That's a counter. That's bullshit though. That's part of the game. She runs away and summons enemies. So the enemies turn up, and this is fantastic because it's an opportunity to do the move I've showed you, which will then enable me to chain executions and get a ton of life back and kill all these dudes. And then you go into this. And you can effectively do this to every enemy that isn't a bride or the clowns. But I'm not going to just do that because it gets pretty boring fast. It's a very safe strategy though. See how much damage this does on a crowd. That didn't work. Inputs on this game, not my favourite. You have to wait for the attack to have generated before you queue it up. And actually, I do have some of the other combos. I completely forgot. But there's too many enemies to control the fights in any kind of really elegant or interesting way. You know, Ninja Gaiden has never been a game about throwing 50 people at you. It's just not how they work. It's not when they're at the most fun. Especially when they're all really bullet spongy, and it reminds me of Lollipop Chainsaw, and I'm sad to say that because I thought Lollipop Chainsaw was god-awful. And this game does have some merit. Unfortunately, it's got Ninja Gaiden on the title, and when you have that on the title, there are expectations. And it just... Come on then, fucking hell. How slow do these people think we read? But you'll notice, she takes a beating, because she's introduced as like a boss. This is a big laser attack. She always does it. And you might be thinking, you know, this is a pretty interesting mini-boss. But it's not. It's an enemy. It's an enemy that is treated later on in the game with no more greater value than those zombies I just slayed that were 30 deep. Because I'm going to fight later on more than 4 of these at the same time, with more than 4 of those clowns at the same time, and the fat dude you haven't seen yet, like, there's a room with, like, 8 of them. 8! And every single one of these enemies have these elemental moves that do area of effect damage. Like, I wish I could take you to a part which was a little bit further on to show you the contrast between this level, where it introduces them and you think it's going to be interesting and balanced, to the end of the game, where they just say, here's a million dudes, no checkpoints, and you die in 3 hits. Good luck. That teleport's super annoying. You barely get a chance to do any combo on it. There we go, now we can execute it. And this is going to get us an electric weapon. So if we come up against anybody who's made of fire, the electric weapon is going to crit on them and kill them really quickly. And it's really interesting. So now we've done that, we can do these horrific wall jumping moments which are insanely dull. I'm barely doing anything. You can hear the presses. I'm pressing one button, the game does everything else. You know, you might as well be watching a cutscene. It's so strange. And then we're over here, so hopefully we'll see the fat guy before I stop this, because unfortunately the game gets boring very quickly. After one playthrough I was pretty much done with it. So this is another fight, introducing maybe a different enemy. So these are just a different skinned zombie. And I'm not going to waste this weapon. So the cool thing here is you can drop them. The biggest problem is, the button to drop is the same button to grab, so there are times when you'll do a grab when you want to drop, and you'll take an unnecessary beating because you're in the frames of the grab you didn't want. You can imagine the frustration on a mode where you can die in 1 hit. But that move is insanely OP. I love it. I just wish it was more interesting to watch. I need a torso that's the top half instead of the bottom so I can get a nice counter on it. But do you see how there's this interesting stun to execution not unlike Ninja Gaiden 2, just nowhere near as amazingly awesome or finessed or as interesting. And that game came out, what? You know, donkey's years ago. And then this game takes that mechanic and trivialises it to something that's remarkably uninteresting. It's... like, at this point, this has more to do with, like, a button mashy, you know, Dynasty Warriors-esque kill a million dudes than it does ever Ninja Gaiden. And it's all good and well if you're wanting to turn your brain off, but I kind of like my brain on... oh, this is another interesting special zombie. This guy's kind of the grabber, the brawler dude. He's powerful, he's got a lot of life, and like all the other guys, he gets armoured to hell when... you see what I mean? He just completely goes through your attacks all the time. It's kind of frustrating unless you're used to it. Oh. Thanks a lot, buddy. Do your other move. There we go. So you get your counter on him, and then from your counter, you can go into your little slow-mo mode and start kicking his ass. You get your execution. A lot of the executions look very similar. And they're not the most interesting. And this guy's going to give us these non-elemental nunchuck moves. But I'm not bothered about them, because I want the thing we dropped. Where is it? That's the one we want. Because I want to show you this elemental interaction, which is the best part of this game, and the least explained. So we're going to skip past these, because there's no point. A lot of clipping on this game as well. This is a puzzle. This is what this game calls puzzles. You throw zombies into machinery in the open door sphere. It's interesting and amusing the first time. You do it far too much. And then through here is... I think this is a couple of the specials in a single fight. Yeah, I think that's what this is. So this is a combination of clowns and the guy we just fought. And zombies. Maybe I'm wrong. But you can already see your patience might be wearing thin with these massive groups of zombies. Well, just imagine if all of them were specials, because that's where the game goes at the end. Oh, that's the torso I want. I can get an achievement if I can parry that little torso. Just don't want to kill it with that move. Oh, there's one. Oh, he's on me. There's too many dudes, though. I got it! I got it! No, I didn't. I got him. Shit. You. No, not you. See what I mean? Super annoying. Why do they throw a million dudes at you? It's not fun. No game handles a million dudes well unless you cut through them all in one hit and it looks amazing. Like, I think God of War is one of the best games for a lot of enemies because it really gives you the impression that Kratos is very strong. And a lot of his moves are all arena-y based big sweep attacks. So it makes sense in those games. It's never made sense in like, your Devil May Cry's. Which is why there's only that one game that has a shit ton of enemies in it, and it's almost the novelty of the mode, and because that game has got such a fun combat system, you don't really mind. Like, you try and do different things, but there's no launcher, so you're very limited. There's no modifier from dodging, or... There is a charge attack, which is quite interesting, because it hurt me when I first got it. Get our legs. That's kind of cool, but there's never any real use for it. Here comes the clowns, and the other guy. One thing I do like is how it tells you how much damage your attacks do. I think that's a really interesting thing to display. Because it helps people that are looking for DPS to understand what it means. So for instance, we're trying to... This is usually a guaranteed stun. Yeah, knocks them over. It's one of the moves... Whoa, get out of there. It's one of the moves I was using against some of the big groups of these specials. Knock them down, proceed to hit them a lot, and then execute. And it works a decent amount. But later on, it just becomes such a mess that it's not very fun. So you're graded at the end of each thing, but the grades themselves never really mean much. It's never feels all that satisfying to get the best rank. But then again, the game itself is not that satisfying either. It's such a shame too. But I've pretty much played as much as I want to here, folks. This is it. You've seen nearly everything that's in this game. Just know that later on it gets to the point where... Oh, this is a kamikaze enemy. That's how powerful lightning is against them. Like, the elemental stuff in this is super interesting. If you're a Ninja Gaiden fan, you need to stay away from this game because it's going to ruin the franchise, and At this point, it's dead, folks. There's no reviving it. I have no idea what they do next, but it needs to be something drastic, because this is really the bottom of the barrel. For somebody coming into this for an action game, they don't want too much depth. They're not looking to challenge themselves. You might have some fun here. If you're looking to get the harder difficulties down, you're not going to have any fun, because I can already tell from my hard playthrough that the end of this game is going to be an absolute horror show. I personally didn't think with an F, because that's how the English language is supposed to sound, I didn't think this was all that much fun, but there is fun to be had. And if you can come into it with an open mind and don't take it too seriously, this might be a game that's worth renting. But if you pick this up hoping for something that's deep and that's going to stand the test of time that you can really master, you're at the wrong title. This is not it. But thank you very much for watching, and as always, you take care now.